Hello everybody and welcome back. We're going to be taking a look at a campaign that I finished a couple weeks ago on the Twitch channel and just doing a timeline for it and some final thoughts just to sort of keep it in the records for history's sake. Alright, so let's get going. We do need to zoom in pretty far here to see where we started. We are Ternate on this small little island here. And it took us about 8 years, but we were able to go to war with Tidor. It took us about 8 years to grab that up. And the funny thing is, of course, this area is completely surrounded by this sea towel, so we cannot get claims on anybody else. We had to get colonization, exploration ideas. We grabbed this, which allowed us to attack into Bhutan. We colonized this because we're kind of waiting. There's an annoying alliance network here. I think they were allied here for a while. We found an opportunity to attack into them, grab this land, because this is, of course, a very important center of trade. Very important center of trade, including, and it's also grasslands. That's going to be significant. It's also grasslands. We were able to colonize up here just to grab claims, right? So we sort of built spy networks with Bhutan and Cebu. We colonize here for a moment. We claim, pull them back. We were able to go to war here because this was our only ally for a very long time. This was the only alliance that we were able to even get because there were so many penalties for distance modifiers and different religion and, you know, all kinds of nonsense, because we were animist for a while. I think, yeah, we eventually went Hindu. And that was a lot of fun, actually. That was a lot of fun. So we did grab this to get a strategic positioning on Brunei. Oddly enough, we ended up attacking Kutai first. Kutai did grow a bit, but then they had to retreat a little bit. When Brunei came back and took some of the land back. We came up here and got Milan pretty early, center of trade. Yes, Cebu is also, these are all centers of trade, I believe, in the Philippines nodes. At this point, I think Tondo has actually become a tributary of Ming. If we zoom out, we can see that Ming is doing Ming things, not exploding. At this point, there's Kutai is actually probably our vassal, so we're going to see them grow a little bit more here. It took a while for us to get going. We colonized East Timor, because we needed another province with grasslands. Because what we're doing is, to get the institutions over here, we're actually mass developing. First, we got Ternate for Renaissance. Then we did Makassar for colonization. And we did East Timor for printing press. So we had to we ended up highly developing these areas to get the institutions here. We finished sort of feeding back Kutai, what land Kutai already had cores on, and then giving them also Sula here. It gobbled up Brunei, of course. There's a very important center of trade there. Sunda is definitely our vassal at this point. Okay, so let's pause the game here, because around the 1550, or pause the timeline, around the 1550 mark, we actually have the Mamluks and the Ottomans both already making it to Indonesia with exploration ideas, which is insane. And that's going to actually become a huge problem, because the Mamluks and the Ottomans are both going to be allying these Sunni nations here and making it incredibly annoying. Malacca at this point is our ally, but they're also a tributary of Ming. And I believe Kasai is potentially allied to either the Mamluks or the Ottomans. I'm not sure exactly, but that really was throwing a wrench in things. And also we can check up here. One of the things that we did, we just did this around 1550. We snagged this here. We colonized this little archipelago here, island chain. So that's going to allow us to attack Japan, because at this point, almost everybody, except for, you know, this nation here and this nation here, pretty much everybody's going to be a tributary of Ming. Ming is very powerful at this point, and they have an iron grip on most of the nations in the southeast, except for Japan. And this nation up here. So we are going to colonize this and start working down here. I believe we already had, nope, we're starting on Australia, and we might be starting on Alaska here. So we are kind of diversifying here. We are doing a heavy colonization game. So but it's going to be a while before we can actually act on this. Not before we can, but before we do. Again, we're continuing to take bites here and feed our vassal a little bit here. One of the things that we're finishing up Brunei, which is great. Kind of doing some extra colonizing here. At this point, we're worried that the this is some nice development land. We're worried that the Ottomans are going to try to scoop all this up, which would be kind of annoying. We're just trying to scoop up all the high development areas in Indonesia before the Ottomans or the Mamluks start taking it. Of course, here's the annoying thing. The Mamluks actually did get Taiwan, which is unfortunate. Here's something interesting, though. Khmer actually got released by rebels. We no-CB'd them. I don't do no-CB wars very often here, but we did no-CB them. We conquered them and then released them as a vassal. They had a bunch of cores up here. Bunch of cores. I think they even have a few more that we're going to get them soon. So this is now our vassal. We have 2 vassals here. I think Sunda's going to be getting integrated pretty soon here. We are taking those bites out of Japan at this point. We have California made, but we do not have Alaska made yet. But we have Australia and California, 1620. It's not really a world record or anything. We did sneak in a war somehow against Malacca, it looks like, and we grabbed Malacca proper, which is an important center of trade. And now it's kind of getting to the point, as we continue to take bites out of Japan here, it's getting to the point now where we really cannot do anything without dealing with this guy here. So we take this land from Lanzang, and at this point the Ming actually declares on us. At this point they actually just full on declare war on us. I think for a while we were actually a tributary in order to do a couple of these wars, but then somehow the tributary broke. I don't know if Ming became domineering or something, I'm not sure. But Ming does declare war on us around this point, just unexpectedly. And it was a nasty war. I think we had forts here. Basically, the Ming were coming into here. We had to fully exploit the AI. Fully exploit the AI. We trapped a bunch of AI down here using the straits. Trapped a bunch of their troops down here. And we were fighting them in the jungles here. We had forts in these areas strategically placed because of Ming. And this is in a defensive war. We actually grabbed that much land from them. Then in the next war, I think we ended up full sieging them, but they were allied to Great Britain. I kid you not. Ming got the alliance with Great Britain. So Great Britain had like hundreds of ships. They had like 50 heavies floating around down here. It was incredibly annoying. But once we beat up this Ming here, what happened was Korea, they actually attacked Korea, which meant that, of course, Korea was no longer a tributary. So we swooped in and actually got the bulk of Korea, where Ming took a little bit of land. We took a bunch of land from Korea very, very quickly. And then in the final war against Ming, we got their I think at the second war against Ming, when we declared it, we got their devastation up high enough that we tanked their mandate, right? We tanked the mandate, so their troops were just not capable of fighting. The last war against Ming was pretty easy. The only tricky thing here, whoops, oh, sorry about that, everybody. The only tricky thing, let's speed up to get back to where we were. We can actually zoom out and maybe see it in high speed here. But the tricky thing was just Ming had 300,000. Heck, that first war, it was 300,000 troops against our 100,000. It was insane. And we had no good alliances, right? We really just had no alliances this game at all. It was very difficult to get any alliances going until we got big enough to the point where it didn't matter. I mean, later we could have maybe allied Baumanis, but I think they were our rival permanently. Once things started happening with Ming, though, it was just bam, bam, bam. It was hard to take more land than what we did here just because of the high development. But once we had this land, we were just making tons of money. Tons of money. We're just kind of cleaning up the area here. We ended up going to war with the Ottomans, right? Like, this is now belongs to Ternate. This does too. So we ended up, you know, we snagged this back from the Ottomans and the Mamluks. We did end up beating them up in order to sort of clean up Indonesia. I think for the most part, yeah, I think for the most part we're the only nation here. Except for the Ottomans colonized. We didn't colonize every little bit here, so some of these other nations like Baumanis and the Ottomans are, whoops. I need to see that again, are here. We actually have Ottomans on Australia, which is pretty annoying. We have Ottomans here on actual Australia, I mean New Zealand, sorry. Great Britain started colonized like a maniac. And this is really the extent to what we could do in the New World. We weren't actively going to war to try to expand these areas. So Britain was the one that sort of took a lot of this land down here, rather than us doing that. Interesting that this is controlled by the British West Indies. I'm kind of curious how that all happened. But yeah, you know, I'm pretty happy. This game was really interesting because of how we had to bounce around and we were juggling so many different angles and fronts and everything. And it was also interesting too because we had to develop it sort of was the first campaign that I ever had to play the institution game. I'd never played the institution game before. So it was really interesting having to actually sort of like, not spawn, but sort of propagate the Renaissance over here. And then we ended up doing, you know, 50 development here. We ended up doing colonialism, and then we did the printing press down here, which the printing press, we adopted that pretty quickly. And then after that, the cool thing was, if we go to the institution map mode, I think after that we ended up snagging, yeah, Beijing actually got global trade and enlightenment. Global trade and enlightenment. And manufacturers was no big deal, right? We had tons of money, so we had tons of manufacturers. So we didn't have to do spam. We didn't have to spam develop for any of the others besides the first three. Once we got by printing press, it was really actually pretty easy getting global trade and enlightenment because, like, it spawned Ming. In fact, I think for the most part that actually kind of wrecked Europe a little bit if you think about it. Like some of these areas, heck, even in France, some of these areas don't even have the enlightenment. I mean, they've embraced it, right? Of course, but the provinces still haven't even figured it out yet. And I guess we're also in the same boat there, aren't we? It's just interesting. Just interesting. Both the global trade spawning in Beijing. I've seen that happen, I think, a couple times now. But you really do expect it to happen over in England. You know, now they have 180. We go to Beijing, it's only 120, right? I mean, of course, you know, Ming's been beat up, though. But that was a really interesting campaign. We really had to play the institution game. I've never done a nation over in Southeast Asia like that. I've never done an island nation like this. It was a slow start. In fact, I think it actually, to be fair, guys, I think it took me 3 tries. I think this was the 3rd time charm. The first couple of times we actually, I think, failed. We straight up failed the initial wars, and we ended up losing a couple key wars and having to restart. So we could have, it's only 1724 too. We could have absolutely just kept eating here. We could have, you know, we could have made all of this Ternate, just beautiful Ternate, right? But it's like, what's the point? One of the things that I kind of regret about this campaign is there was no like focusing achievement that we were going for. We couldn't form Malaya because we're not the right culture group. And I don't know how to change cultures yet. So at least efficiently change cultures. So we didn't end up doing that. But it was cool to play Ternate. It was cool to play this little nation, this little special little spice island nation. We were just, I mean, some of these areas were just making so much money in production. It's not even funny. Really interesting little game. Lots of challenging aspects. I mean, fighting Ming, just navigating the tributary system. Lots of challenges here. A lot of fun. Ended up being, I think, a success. Although we didn't blob out as much as we could have. We definitely could do a lot of blobbing in the last 100 years if we cared. But I don't think we really care. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to this final thoughts on Ternate. And I will see you guys in the next one.